Good morning, friends. It's Brad here, and I wanted to come on today to talk about an upcoming class I'm teaching. I call it The Soul of Your Story, but it's basically a beginner's memoir class. And I wanted to tell you a bit about it. It starts on June 26th. It runs 5 weeks till July 24th. It's on Wednesdays at noon Mountain Time or 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And I think a long time ago when I was a magazine writer, I interviewed a man, an explorer, who told me a story about when he got lost in the jungle and how after much fear and trembling, they finally found underneath a bunch of vines a road, a few rocks that formed a road, and then they uncovered it. They found an old Incan road. And he said to me, we were saved. And I didn't understand what he meant, why this road in the middle of a jungle, this ancient road, would save them. And he said, Bradley, a road goes someplace. And so what he said is those ancient roads were linked to other ancient cities and also were linked to present day cities. And so if they followed that ancient road, they would eventually come out into civilization. It was far better than just being lost in a sea of jungle. And so, a lot of my clients come to me and I hear in their voice that they are in sort of a jungle. They've been working on their manuscript for a long time. Sometimes they're just starting out, but the sense is that they've given it a try and they've gotten lost. I've done this for a long time, and I know that there's many ways to get lost. We can get lost even trying to figure out where the beginning of your book is. You can get lost in the messy middle where you just get overwhelmed with where the story is going to go. And if you don't have a road to take you, to the promised land, to take you, to lean on when you do feel lost, then you're going to struggle, and you may not ever finish your book. And I, my passion is helping people, write and finish and put into the world their stories. I wrote a memoir and it was published a year ago, and it was very transformative. I've been editing, articles and essays and memoirs for 30 years. Been writing essays and articles for 30 years, but writing this memoir was really healing for me. As someone who has suffered in the past from addiction and PTSD, and so. And I developed a bit of a point of view or a method that and I don't like the word method. It's not a method. It's a point of view. It's a pattern that you can use as your road to lead you to writing and finishing your book, and also experiencing the healing that I've experienced in writing a memoir. So I'll share a little bit about what my point of view is. I believe that a memoir, there are a lot of skills it takes. It is, but it really comes down to two things. It comes down to telling great stories, and it comes down to really developing a strong, unique voice. And I'll talk a little bit about those two things. Storytelling, it's something that we know innately. I think our brains are wired for story. We consume and present information in stories. It's just how our brains work. It's how they've worked for ever since humans have been around. But there are some things you can do to tell more powerful stories. There's the story arc, and we can lean into. We'll talk about how to think about and feel into what the rising action is, what the inciting event is, what the crisis climax and resolution is, and I'll teach you how to learn to feel your way towards that crisis and climax. And in doing that, I'll teach you to lean into action, because action really is the fuel of good storytelling. And action comes in two forms. Action is obviously physical action, you moving through the world, and also then you desiring. Desire is another form of action, and that is desire is really, as I said, the rocket fuel of telling a great story. Agency is an important idea in storytelling. This is a memoir is the story of how you became you. And we want to see you making decisions, choosing one thing over the other, and maybe suffering the consequences of each decision. And sometimes the decision leads to something positive happening, sometimes it leads to a setback. But either way, then you have a realization or a lesson learned that then becomes the ground upon which you tell your next story. So storytelling is one of the most important parts of writing a memoir, and I'll unpack all my ideas about how to tell a great story. And then the other thing that's essential in a memoir is voice. And voice, I have clients come to me with telling me that their voice is the voice of X. It's the voice of a certain writer, and they're convinced of that, and they're trying to mimic that. And I don't think mimicking is a terrible thing to do when you're starting out as a writer, but I do know that if you do a few things, you can develop your own really strong author voice. And to me, those things are essentially leaning into the fundamentals of good writing, which is brevity and clarity. If you lean into strong verbs, you lean into eliminating adverbs. Some of these things you hear in the basic courses, but if you really make your writing lean and conversational, your voice will start to emerge, your unique voice. And the other thing about voice is it's also wrapped up in your worldview. So it's not simply the words, how you arrange the words. Point of view. Voice. Is also the how you see the world and what different hats you wear. And it's really about turning yourself into a character that's authentic, but also a character that is, I guess maybe limited to the person, the character that you want to represent in this book. We're all of us are made up of so many different parts, and there's a certain way that in turning yourself into a character, in limiting part of yourself, that you can create a really strong worldview. And so those are the two things: that storytelling and worldview that are so important in voice. They're so important in writing a memoir. So we'll unpack all those things more in this class. And again, this class starts on June 26th. It runs 5 weeks, and it's on Wednesdays at noon. And I would really love to have you in my class, and we'll talk about all these things. It'll be, as much as it's a how-to, it'll also be very inspirational and also generative. We'll do a lot of writing together and a lot of sharing together. So I hope I see you then. You can reach out to me through my website at bradwetzler.com. You can book an appointment if you want to talk about the class, or you can email me at brad@bradwetzler.com, and I'll have all that below. It's great to see you. I hope you have a great Sunday.